Okay, good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. My name is Madison. I'm the manager of intellectual property programs here at Invest Ottawa. It's a pleasure to welcome you to, thanks everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you to Leveraging IP for Business Success, streaming live online and taking place in person at Bayview Yards, Ottawa's Innovation Center located on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. I would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather virtually and in person is the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. We are grateful to have the opportunity to present in this territory and come together as a national community. Further, I want to respect and affirm the inherent treaty rights of all Indigenous people across this land. We recognize the contributions of Métis, Inuit, and all Indigenous peoples have and continue to make, both in shaping and strengthening this community and our country as a whole. Thank you for joining today's event. We're really thrilled to invite all of you here to Bayview Yards, and I will turn it over to Nick to let him introduce himself and say a few words before back to me for some housekeeping.
Thanks, Maddie. And yeah, a lot of, for those that haven't been to Bayview before, we do have some awesome original Indigenous art, actually, that's part of our foundry and part of working with the local Indigenous community. So really excited to be here for International Women's Month. Yes. At Invest Ottawa, a day's not enough, a week's not enough, so it's a month. We'll see whether it grows into a season or something. I'm not sure. I don't know that the event team could take it, but for me, I think International Women's Month is a lot of fun and really interesting because it kind of symbolizes once a year of taking stock of how far we've come. Back in 2019, I was part of a group, a subcommittee that still exists today, a women founders and owners subcommittee. And in 2019, we decided to become more deliberate in our efforts to bring in more women entrepreneurs, founders, both into our tech and to our non-tech side, because we recognized that that wasn't happening. In particular, on the tech side of the house, in terms of venture, back in 2018, it was around 1 in 10 founders that we work in, 1 in 10 startups that we were working with had a woman founder or co-founder. And actually, when I joined Invest Ottawa late 2017, early 2018, 1 in 12 advisors was a woman. And now we have come a long way. In 2024, our Ignition Bootcamp, which is our startup bootcamp for tech startups, 45% of those startups had a woman founder or co-founder. So we're not quite there, but we're getting there. That's a long way from where we were of under 10%. We have over 150 women founders in our Flex program. We have over 120 women founders, executives, and leaders in our Ladies Who Launch program. And our advisors now, over 40 strong, is very close to 50%. It floats around 50% women founders, so, or women advisors rather. So we have come a long way. But one of the areas where we still have some work to do on bringing in more women is on the deeper tech and technical side of entrepreneurship. Where we've seen, and I've seen the statistics on the number of women in engineering now, number of women who are becoming scientists and researchers and all of those things. That needle is moved as well. But we have some work to do to bring and draw out more of those women who are working on something really, really interesting and actually helping them take that step to starting a business. And the IP program that Maddie runs does a lot with that, because we have advisors who can help advise on IP. IP, I mean, I'm sure for many of you, is a bit of this nebulous, confusing thing, and it just sort of makes your head dizzy thinking about my IP strategy. So having advisors and funding available to simplify that for you and give you an IP strategy has been really powerful. And it's not just for women founders. We've also come a long way in Paula's team on the non-tech side of entrepreneurship. We do have 50% representation of women entrepreneurs in both our summer and starter company programs. And you can see today we have a whole bunch of really cool businesses that are displaying around here on that fall outside of perhaps what you would call tech. But IP remains important for those in terms of copyright and trademarks and a lot of the things that the IP program also helps support. So really excited for the program that we have today with Rachel and Swati, and then we have Maura's panel with Els, Claudia, and Lisa. You're going to hear from some amazing women today, and just really excited to be here and be part of it.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. And yeah, let's give that a round of applause. And I think that's a good transition just to highlight the trade show that we have on display today. So in the room, you'll notice several booths set up at the back. These are all companies who have leveraged Elevate IP support over the last couple of years. But don't miss out on checking out all the other booths in the lobby and the cafe area as well. Those are all clients of our Small Business Enterprise Center that supports Main Street companies. So there's tons of great organizations on display today. Make sure to take the time to check them out. Before we move on, a few other housekeeping items. We will have questions at the end of each session. There will be a mic located at the back of the space. So if you have questions, you can line up there as we start to conclude each segment of the day. We'll be taking lots of pictures and videos today, so smile for the camera and feel free to share any of this on your own social media using the hashtag IWM2025 or hashtag AccelerateAction. We always appreciate any event feedback that you have, so please answer our feedback survey that'll come up at the end of the event today. What else do I have to tell you? I'll be back a little bit later. You'll be sick of me by the end of the day. I will pop in about halfway through.
Impossible.
You're right. I'll pop in about halfway through for a brief presentation where I'll tell you all about what Invest Ottawa is doing and how we can support you with your IP, but also beyond that, just general business support. I think that's enough. So let's kick things off. I'm going to welcome Naomi from Navio Law up to say a few welcoming remarks, and then we'll get things started.
Thanks very much. Oh, I'm not sure if it's on. Is it on? Okay. Thanks very much, Madison and Nick. Good morning, everyone. Are we all hyped for today? I hope so. Woo! Right? My name's Naomi Morisawa de Koven. I'm the co-founder of a local law firm called Navio Law. After 20 years, we relaunched as Navio Law in January, and we're very excited to be supporting Canadian entrepreneurs and businesses. And because of the challenging times, in our latest newsletter, Disrobed, we actually have a Buy Canadian, Invest Canadian list at the back. So check it out. It's going to be floating around in the lobby area. And like all of you, we are so proud of our Canadian businesses and we want to support them. So that's what part of what we're doing today is supporting Canadian businesses to become stronger and more competitive in the world. So we're especially thrilled to be able to partner with Invest Ottawa and to welcome all of you founders, creators, and innovators from across our community to this special event this morning. During the month of March, we have benefited as a community from some really awesome sharing through the series of IWM events and initiatives. We stand united as a community in a shared goal to inspire, equip, and empower women leaders and entrepreneurs and founders and companies. So today's session will offer you extensive information, insight, and resources into opportunities and support for you as you're building out your trademark and IP management strategy for your products and services. So like you, I'm really excited to hear this morning from some amazing, amazing leaders who are navigating the world of IP and some who have access to support from Invest Ottawa's Elevate IP program. So thanks very much for indulging me, and let's get on with the day.
Thanks so much, Naomi. All right, let's kick things off with our fireside chat. So I will now welcome to the stage our moderator, Rachel Bartholemew, founder and CEO of Hyivy Health and founder and lead advisor of Femtech Canada, and also Swati Matta, head of women's health at Dialogue and co-founder of Koble. Let's give them a round of applause.
Perfect. That was the whole goal. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Swati. Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Isn't this such a warm fireside indeed?
Yeah. Nice, bright and early. Got some coffee in us.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you all for being here today, and thank you for having us for the fireside chat. I am so honored to get to chat with Swati. You were really in the trenches in Femtech and women's health long before I even came in and started shaking things up a little bit. And you were the first kind of herder of cats of everyone in the Femtech space. So we go a long way back. And I have to say, I'm just so proud of everything that you've accomplished from when I first met you to where you're at now, which is such a cool story. So tell us a little bit about Koble, founding Koble, and what your current position is at Dialogue, and we'll tell you the story of how those two things connect together eventually. But tell us a little bit about your backstory with Koble.
Such a warm welcome, Rachel. Thank you. I certainly feel, like similar about you, and it's great to see all that you've accomplished as well, and that we get to share a stage today. So to your question, perhaps before jumping into Koble and Dialogue, let me give a quick introduction on myself. As Rachel said, I'm Swati. I've spent my career in healthcare, meaning right out of undergrad, I worked at the hospitals across the Greater Toronto area, developing tools for neuroscientists. And that's where I got hooked to applying technology to healthcare, and just seeing the drastic patient outcomes out of technology just fueled my interest into digital health. So I've been in the digital health space for about 15 years, and I've been in both public and private spaces. I worked at TELUS and League, and in fact, it was at League where my personal frustration of navigating fertility in our healthcare system, as well as advising some employers around some of the fertility benefits and access to care their employees could have, that led me into starting Koble. And for those who don't know what we did at Koble, essentially Koble was founded in 2021. It was first of its kind digital health platform to support women and their families navigate fertility, pregnancy, postpartum, with this vision of supporting women through all different life stages. And that founding journey was really hard if I were to describe it in one word, but through support of many other female founders in Femtech, we realized that this space is massively underserved, both from an investment standpoint, but also solution standpoint. And so at Koble, our platform connected women and their families to 17 different types of experts to support them through their journey. We offered live and on-demand sessions where women could join these groups moderated by professionals such as OBGYNs, physiotherapists, psychotherapists, and so on, to connect and really learn all of these, new experiences that we're all dealing with at that critical stage of our life. And also, as I mentioned, it's a bit about this community that we were building, so nobody had to feel alone. So did that for about 4 years, and one of our partners, tapped on our shoulder, and I'll get into sort of how this all came to be, to look at an opportunity where we could essentially turn that partnership into an acquisition. And that really opened a massive, opportunity for Koble, in that through this acquisition with Dialogue, it opened up access to employers across Canada, and Dialogue's affiliation with Sun Life opened up even more access to the market, which we'll certainly get into how IP played a huge role in doing that. So that's a bit about me, Koble, and Dialogue.
Amazing. And so you started Koble during COVID, really. It was just before then. So digital health probably was such a huge factor in probably your growth, right? Because of people needing digital services, right? And being at home and not being able to visit their doctor. And were you employed at the time, like before you made the jump into making Koble? Like, did you have to kind of make a jump from full-time job to full-time entrepreneur?
Absolutely. It was such a pivotal moment. I remember in January of 2020, I'd just come back from my brother's wedding in India, and my husband and I were frankly thinking of going on a sabbatical. We were thinking we'll take a year off, and before we have kids and do all of that family stuff, we just need to spend some time together. And I was about to go in and tell the co-founder of League, saying, "Hey, I'm going to leave." And at this point, Rachel, I was, being at League was incredible in that I was fortunate to have the opportunity to build a healthcare platform ground up for employers, and now, of course, leading healthcare providers. So making that decision of leaving something I loved that had a massive impact was anyway quite dooming. And then COVID hit. And so, that plan of sabbatical went away, but this desire to, go after my dream still stayed with me. So I explored, okay, what is my dream? Like, where do I see myself go in the next, 5 to 10 years? And I did this Ikigai exercise, and that helped me sort of like understand, my strengths and where can I apply it. And with this, as I mentioned, the personal frustration and my experience, it was inevitable to start something, early in the pandemic, which only fueled this excitement of how critical it is for women to have the support during this time where you have no physical access to medical providers, right? So, I feel like it was meant to be in many ways, and for me to have this openness of trying something new while there was an opportunity where I could give back to the community by building something that would add value.
Amazing. Okay, tell me a little bit about intellectual property for Koble, what that meant for Koble, and why it was so crucial to your journey and your story with your company.
Yeah, sure. So, IP is such a critical component of, for at least, founder and what you're building now more than ever, right? We all know how AI is accelerating development of innovation and so on. But again, back in 2020, it wasn't much different in that you really had to make an intentional decision from the get-go to prioritize how you think about IP. And what I mean by that is, at Koble, we were building a platform for women and families, starting with, one part of a journey, right? Like one part of our women's life journey. And I knew that our goal was always to continue to add on different life, events. So when it came to our recipe, right, what we were building, i.e. both from a software perspective as well as from a content perspective, from the get-go, I wanted to make sure we were set up for success. So we were lucky that we had a law firm who partnered with us early on to ensure that we were thinking about this in a critical way. So when it came to software development, when you're hiring your first few developers, it's really important to think about how you're going to engage them in that process. Many of us, in early stages don't have the funding. So, in many cases, we're leaning on talent for various arrangements, right? Whether it's like, hey, you work for free or take equity or right? And in that exchange, you have to absolutely make sure that what you're building is protected, so that as you build it out for the future, there's no, constraints for you to grow, right? The second very critical component for Koble was content, right? So we built, over the 4 years, we ended up building about 1,000 different content pieces, both videos, actually many audio, video, and sort of like text, and they were bilingual. And to build that content, we were working with experts. So think medical professionals, right? And we all know how much medical professionals are proud of what they're building. So again, setting yourself up for success early on, we made sure that our contracts really defined that any content that was created by the professionals was in the end IP of Koble, to ensure that as we build out thousands and thousands of these content pieces, they were being protected as we build out. And then lastly, to bring it all together is your recipe for success. What is your unique value proposition? What's your moat? And for us, it was really building this personalized experience for women and their families as they came through the Koble platform, and also demonstrating the return on investment. So this third piece, which is more of this your secret sauce, we don't think about as an asset, but it truly is. And all of these three pieces played a key role as we thought about how do we monetize our business, but also how do we demonstrate a competitive edge in the market as we went to fundraise in the months to come.
So interesting, because I don't know about anybody else in the room, but especially for software companies, we often think IP is just something that doesn't relate to us whatsoever. So, so interesting to hear your perspective of it and how you applied it. I love the content analogy of it.
And Rachel, if you don't mind, because your company, right, you focus a lot on the physical products. Could you talk a little bit about how you thought about IP? I've become
moderating a moderator. I love it. Yeah, I mean, we have about 9 patents in our portfolio, design patents. So really, we put a lot of work into, we have a medical device for gynecology and colorectal applications. And we put a lot of thought into things like the ergonomics and the things that we put in behind our device. So design patents were really important for that. We did utility patents, so protecting the actual form and function, and not just of the device, but how it connects into a larger ecosystem of software and data collection. And then trying to build on that as we start to learn. So, it's so important to get things patented right off of the bat. And that was something that we wanted to do so that we could go out and start pitching. But what we have continued to do is constantly nurture that patent portfolio. So it's been a big piece to our development as well. But thank you for that question.
So there's a lot of companies here that I'm seeing that have physical products.
Yeah.
I was talking to Ingrid right there from Helena, and she's working on a patent. So I thought it would be very helpful for her to learn from you.
Yeah, for sure. It's do it early. I mean, obviously, don't be afraid to pitch your product, but at the same time, before you go out and tell everybody your secret sauce, talk to a lawyer. There's a couple in the room today. Okay, great. So tell me a little bit about the challenges then in protecting your IP in Koble and kind of how you overcame them. Obviously, good lawyers, good feedback, that type of thing is important, but tell me a little bit about those challenges.
Yeah, sure. So I will caveat by saying, as an early stage founder, it's really important to balance both the advice you get legally and also balance the speed to which you can get to market, right? So for us, I wanted to get in the trenches and build a beta, bring it out to the market within 3 months of, deciding that I'm doing this, right? So I wanted to build a team together very, very quickly. So the first part of my learning was people, right? Like, how do you engage with talent early on? How do you bring on board talent and ensure that they're incentivized, but you're also protecting your IP? So one of the challenges was I didn't have any funds to give to these folks early on, right? It was this future promise of equity, which we can get into if anyone's interested, but really ensuring that you sign some paperwork or some contract. It has to be one page where they're just assigning the IP over to you. I really recommend that because I didn't do that early on, right? Like when we launched our beta and started to go fundraise, it's when the investors started to ask, hey, do you have assigned IP from your developers, from your experts and so on? And part of me was like, I have the paperwork, but I just haven't gotten to it, right? And I think that really sparked this urgency of ensuring that I have everything in order before I pursued any further venture capital. So all to say that, while these conversations can be really difficult because there are people who might leave because you're saying for $1, you're assigning this IP to me for this future promise of equity and salary and so on. I think you just have to have that honest conversation up front with people because that's your biggest truly asset in the beginning of what you're starting. So for me, that was the biggest challenge, was really ensuring that we had ducks in a row before we went to fundraise.
And so you just worked with a lawyer, did it yourself, got feedback. How'd you overcome that?
Yeah, we had a bunch of back and forth with our lawyers because they obviously send this massive package. So as I mentioned, right, you have to find a balance. So my ask was like, how can we, make sure it's like 2 pages, super easy for these medical professionals to understand. And so they came back with like, a smaller version of it. So there's a bit of, you have to push the envelope to understand what your talent or people you're dealing with will, really accept early on in the process.
And Elevate IP and IPON and all these
Exactly.
things didn't exist
Yeah.
back then, right? So it was out of pocket costs
Yeah,
until you get funding support. So everybody, make sure to chat with Elevate IP in those groups. Tell me a little bit about how then your IP helped with scaling and commercialization. I mean, you've mentioned a little bit about it, but did it contribute to kind of how you scaled, how you competed in the market, your competitive edge and against competitors, that type of thing?
Yeah, it absolutely did. So when we launched Koble, it was a B2C product. So we were selling direct to consumer and so on. Very quickly, we realized that the cost of acquisition for consumers is quite high, especially in the digital health space in the market we were in. So we pivoted to B2B, and so that required a lot of partnership thinking. So for us at Koble, our strategy was to partner with digital health providers because that's the type of customer we were targeting. And in Canada, some of the biggest players when it came to digital health were Dialogue, Maple, TELUS Health, and NN, right? So very few handful of providers. So we started partnering with these digital health providers, and our partnership, as you know, you trial and error, like what type of partnership will it end up becoming? What really resonated with our partners is our content and what we'd built in terms of our proprietary content for this mass population that they were serving. And so because we had IP and because Koble owned the IP, we were able to license this content and package it in a way such that it was turnkey for these partners to essentially deploy within their platforms and then therefore open up this market for Koble and get eyes of millions of Canadian women on what we were building.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're scaling, you're growing a big company.
Actually, Rachel, I'll add one more thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we talked a little bit about fundraising, right? So, and competitive edge really is important in fundraising as well. Who would think? But really, in speaking to some of the VCs, as I mentioned, they were very curious about, are we, do we own the content? Do we own the IP, and so on and so forth? And their prime reason for that was because they knew, and in our business strategy, we showed, sort of our growth plan, that IP is what is going to be our unique differentiator in the market, given there's a new app coming out every, week, if not month thereafter. So it really helped us in setting ourselves apart during the fundraising process as well, not just our content, but our software, as I mentioned, and our secret sauce around personalization engine and so on and so forth. And last thing I will mention is wasn't true when we were looking for investment in 2021, but it's so true now, right? With Build Canada, Buy Canada, as we heard earlier too, because if your IP is registered in Canada, is registered in Ontario, for example, then you can really seek some really great funding from the government too. So we partnered with Obio, which Rachel, quite well as well. And one of the reasons they invest in you is if you're a registered company in Ontario and your IP is also registered. So something for us as founders to keep in mind is, even though you might be selling in America or globally, just think about where you're registering your company and where's your IP registered and so on, to reap the benefits of the programs that's offered by the government, and also then therefore the preference some of the buyers might or investors might have for you.
Okay, a couple side rapid fire questions. You were selling globally, or where was the concentration of your customer base?
North America, so US and Canada.
Okay. And different healthcare systems to sell into. Was there a challenge around some of that?
So direct to consumer, not so much, because at the end of the day, health is health. The payment mechanism, yes, in that we had to make sure that your Koble subscription was reimbursable by your spending accounts, which is again true for both US and Canada. From a content perspective, we wanted to be Canada first because we saw in market competitors like Ovia Health, Maven, and so on, wherein they were building content that was very much US first, or kind of like the language or the way it was delivered. So yeah, while very different systems, I think it didn't really apply to us early on. It started to apply to us more as we grew B2B.
Amazing. And how many rounds did you raise of funding?
So we did one round of funding, and we raised $1 million US from VC as well as angels, which gave us a runway for about 3 years, and then that was the pivotal point at which really led me to explore some of the options out there. And it was I don't want to get into details, but really some of my personal challenges, health challenges, led to a decision wherein I was looking for exit strategies.
So tell us, so as kind of final wrap up
Yeah.
into your story, tell us about, okay, you decide, what does this exit look like? Acquisitions, obviously a potential. How did you go about that? How did you find an acquirer? How did you find that alignment? And what did that end up looking like for you out the other side of that?
For sure. So I was fortunate in that the partners that the partnerships we had created at Koble with these massive digital health providers were essentially our exit strategy as well, right? So Dialogue, one of the largest digital health players in Canada, supporting 5 million plus, people with their health and well-being through telemedicine, through EAP solutions, and I knew that partnering with someone Number one, where the values were aligned. Number two, where women's health was a key strategic pillar for them to invest in and to grow. And then lastly, to make sure that, the team that I was really going to step into, I loved working with. And as I mentioned, luckily I had partnered and with Dialogue before to know really how they would operate. I did run a process, meaning I ensured that every partner knew that we were open to hearing different options, and that created a competitive process. And IP played a huge role during that process because as some of these digital health providers were, they compete with each other quite aggressively. They knew if this content or this solution went to one of them, they're just going to have a leg up in the women's health space, which we right now know is super hot and a lot of employers are looking to invest in. So that created a competitive process, and ultimately I made the decision to sell to Dialogue, and really grateful for that decision, and I'm super pumped that I get to lead women's health at essentially Sun Life and Dialogue.
Amazing. Round of applause. I mean, acquisition for our females, we need these stories to continue the momentum that we so desperately need to have these success stories. So tell me a little bit about head of women's health at Dialogue. What does that look like? What are you excited about? Tell me a little bit about the women's health sphere and the work that you're doing now.
For sure. So my first task was really to think about how can Dialogue bring women's health to 5 million people they support across Canada. And of course, our step one was easy, which is how do we just take what we built at Koble for one part of a women's health journey and bring it to life. The next really task was around how do we think about women's life across these different life stages. So currently I'm working on developing a solution for menopause, for fertility, more expansive than what we built, as well as hormonal health. And really thinking about what does that roadmap look like for a comprehensive solution that we can bring to employers and therefore their employees and close this gender health gap that we're seeing today. What I am excited about is Dialogue already has this captivated employer base who love using Dialogue, right? And are using for primary care purposes. Now, we believe that our primary care solution today does a great job of supporting women through their acute, health cases, whether it is your UTI, STI, we address that through our primary care solution. Now the thought is, okay, how do we go beyond that, right? And how do we create this coaching and navigation support for women going through menopause, provide hormone therapy, provide, mental health counseling all in one place so that you can thrive in your career when, you've just begun to demonstrate the impact you can have in an organization. So really excited about the work we're doing and bringing it to employers and their employees.
That's awesome. It's like you have a big sandbox you can play in now with lots of resources and people who are there to help support you. That's amazing. And what made you choose to stay? I know with acquisition, sometimes it's like, okay, I just want to let this thing go and live on its own. And people exit within the first year. What inspired you to stay at Dialogue and continue working?
So my vision with Koble was to support the health and well-being of all women, right? And at Koble, we just scratched the surface. At Dialogue, the potential is massive. And so for me to leave unfinished business just doesn't feel right, So part of me staying beyond, so it's been a year now, is to champion women's health within massive insurer space. This startup that still operates independently, but still is part of this massive organization, Sun Life, and really ensuring that we're not just talking the talk of women's health, right? We're walking the walk, meaning we're truly investing in solutions that are going to have health impact and drive better health outcomes.
I love it. I love it. Okay, last question before we take some audience questions. What's some advice you give to women who are in the early stages of developing their business and maybe furthermore developing a business in the healthcare space?
So those, I almost feel they're kind of interconnected, but not really. So for women in general, as we're building businesses, I think we have to be open to asking for what we deserve. And really what I mean by that is when I was starting fundraising process, in my mind, I was like, I just need to raise $250K USD and that's what I need. Whereas I met with the first angel investor and they were about to write a check and they're like, you need to be more aggressive than that. And then, I went back and I was like, okay, okay, $1 million, that sounds about right. So all to say that, don't be afraid to really think about what your business needs to not only just start, but really explode as you grow it. And don't be afraid to ask for that sum. Because if you're bringing value to the market, there's no doubt you will get the investment that you need and deserve.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing your story and being such a role model for everyone in this room and specifically myself. I know, your story is just incredible. Let's thank Swati. Do we have any questions from the room? Don't all jump at once.
Hello? Is it on? Okay. Thank you for your talk today. It's very informative. What obstacle were you preoccupied at the beginning with that you realized you wasted too much time and energy or money on that you probably should have just put behind you, and either by learning it or by someone who's been through the experience told you, don't waste your time, we're going to get past that you could share with us?
Yeah, hindsight is 20/20, right? And of course, when I think about most of my time early on was dealing with talent, right? So building your company in a way that you really see people that complement your expertise and so on. So I spent a lot of time really building that team that I thought would build this, massive business. So I would say that don't worry so much about building the perfect team, but rather find the talent that you believe is going to get you from 0 to 1. And in the process, start to seek further, build your network to then bring on people at the right time. That would be my number one advice is really, really don't spend too much time on building a perfect team from the get-go.
I saw another question over here.
Hi there. You had talked about your exit strategy and the acquisition and how that was a competitive process. What about your IP strategy led you to the point where it was valuable? And how did the companies that were looking at the acquisition measure your IP value?
That's a great question. Perhaps we should ask the acquirer to share that process. But look, at the end of the day, we were the first in market that had produced this massive library of content dedicated for women through fertility, pregnancy, postpartum, and beyond, right? So we knew we had a leg up already. So in their mind, they're thinking about, or at least what was communicated to me was, there's a turnkey library that is bilingual that we can bring to market, go to employers and say, we support women's health, right? So that is how they valued it, is how can we package and sell what Koble is offering in the market to employers, and that's what really ended up determining the process. And as I mentioned, it was very competitive, primarily because if they knew if one of the players went out to market with a solution like Koble, they would have a leg up in terms of their competitors.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I saw another hand up.
Hi, good morning. This one's more about female entrepreneurship opposed to IP in business. What was the turning point in your entrepreneurial journey where you're like, all right, I'm doing this, I'm full in, let's do this?
Well, when you raise your first round, you kind of have to be all in. Truly, for me, the pivotal point was, I hate the word validation, but it's true. Once your idea was validated by the market, we had, thousands of beta users early on that allowed us to really seek that first round of funding. That, validation that this problem exists and our solution is helping thousands of families across Canada and the US, alongside, hey, people want to invest in what I'm building. It's then just motivates you even more to work day and night to make something that's going to have a massive impact.
I love that. I'm stuck with this microphone. Who wants it?
Any other final questions? Burning desires? Thoughts to share? Wanda.
Bluetooth and the data collection and all that stuff. So, but I own a business called Wicked Wandas. So I come up with instant solutions for feeling better about your life. And I also worked in the pelvic floor world for myself personally for many years. So 25 years, I came up with my own solution and patented the resistance.
Congrats.
Thank you. Thank you. So we took a different approach. However, I'm a 55-year-old woman. So when you're going out to raise funding and look for a team, and you are in a 51 group of people, and you recognize not only are you in the 51 percentile, but you're also on the very top of the age. So waiting to express enough what I'm doing, have people understand what I'm doing, and on purpose stay away from the technology until I can show the beta testing, the data that says, how many people have a pelvic floor weakness? Okay, everyone. So at some point through in your life, are you going to have a pelvic floor need? Probably. So trying to dumb it down, because I came from a kind of lower educated standard. I'm a salesperson, I'm in real estate, I build businesses, right? So I've invented this product, Femflexor, for my own person first. And then it was like, oh, this is really good help a lot of people. So as we go out and we have an IP, and now we're starting to attract people, it's taken 4 years. I've dated somebody I call business-wise for 2 years to see if they're the right people. Is this just the process? Is just the time that it takes? Or when you have a team that's young, data-based, I've talked to engineers, I could make my product do whatever it wants to do tomorrow. But I unpurposely, wanted just a simplified product so people could understand their pelvic floor without putting data and all these whiz-giz and gets. To me, it's data, which I think is great, but then you need to rehabilitate that group of muscles. So how do you want to do that? So it's just been a long journey of in and out, 4 years of, getting to a point where we actually have a manufacturer in Canada that's ready to pull us out and let's go. But like, even now, I'm like, how many seed rounds do you need to go through? How many times? So I've self-funded most of my products. So, but now in the last 2 years, we've raised funds and now we're ready to really go. Hard, just the part of the journey, is that it?
So I truly believe that everyone's journey is unique. I know that's a cliche, but it's really, really true. I really want Rachel to kind of share her view because, no, truly, I mean, it's quite aligned to how she's thinking about supporting the pelvic health of women. Perhaps you can share how you have, because you essentially educated a lot of the market around pelvic health. And so what are some of the approaches you have taken and might help?
Wanda and I have regular therapy sessions, so I think she knows all too well. But I mean,
Okay.
I think for the bigger group, it's a different journey, and that's why I was so happy that you shared your journey on software and digital health, because it is a different journey overall. When you're a software and you're able to, create something. Not saying that creating software is easy. I know it's difficult, but you can create something, start to get users, start to get that feedback early on. From a hardware perspective, and you know this all too well, Wanda, alongside me, it's painful. It's a lot of work. Hardware is hard. Investors don't like it. And then layer in the fact that it's women's health and it's something that is very stigmatized and intimate, and they just kind of like shudder and kind of back away. So yeah, I mean, very different.
It's true. What I would say is that sometimes it's when I was fundraising, I made a very intentional decision of fundraising from women and underrepresented founders, because part of my realization was that we have to make sure that the investors are the ones who are feeling the problem, whether it is directly or indirectly. And by indirectly, I mean it's their partners who are essentially screaming in their ears that you better invest in solutions for women's health. So I also find that it's kind of like finding the right fit. And it's okay to hear the no's, because there's going to be 1,000 no's before you hear the yeses, and just have to go through the process and find your people, because when shit hits the fan, because it truly does, monthly, weekly, daily, whatever the cadence is for you. Like for me, like I went through a massive personal health challenge, meaning I gave birth to a newborn, and then I was diagnosed with a brain tumor, all in the span of 3 months to 4 months. So had I not raised from these people who believed in me and what I was building, there's no way they would have supported me through the lows, right? So it's okay to hear the no's. It's okay to take longer to fundraise, because in the long run, that's going to benefit you, your brand, your company, your people, the whole ecosystem.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Swati and Rachel. That was really, really insightful. While they were speaking, I was hiding in the corner, feverishly taking notes of just all the insight that was being poured out of these women. And a few really quick points that I wanted to highlight. Swati said, ask for what you deserve. And I think that's a really important reminder this International Women's Month and every month. Ask for what you deserve. A couple other things were around, Swati talked about IP urgency, but also finding balance as a founder and setting yourself up for success with the right partners. So Swati mentioned Obio. We're in Bayview Yards today, Invest Ottawa, all the available IP support that we'll talk about in a few moments. And she also talked about how protecting her IP allowed her to license the content to those partners, which ultimately led to her acquisition. So some really, really great points and some really powerful tidbits that I think we can all take away. Let's give them one more round of applause. Okay, so I'm not going anywhere, as promised. I'm going to, since I already have your attention, I'm going to take the next 15 minutes or so to chat about available IP support. Before I dive in, I would like to start by recognizing that Invest Ottawa is an Elevate IP recipient, which has been mentioned a few times already this morning. So as a recipient, this program is a national program of Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada. So Invest Ottawa is leading in intellectual property supports for startups in the Eastern Ontario region. And I would like to thank ISED for providing us with the funding to help these startups in our region and also to support with events like the one here today. All right. So here's the agenda for the next few moments. I'm really hoping that each of you can walk away with these 3 things. Before I dive in, just by show of hands, could I get a sense of how many founders are in the room, including someone who has an idea but you haven't launched it yet, anyone who's a researcher, someone who just started a business, or if you have a product and you've started selling? Okay, awesome. Yeah, let's give them a round of applause. All right, so here's our agenda specifically for those folks, but I hope everyone in the room has something to take away from this. So I really want you to be able to identify the right support for you. I want you to have the tools that you need to connect with the resources that you need. And then while you're here today, hopefully, or maybe later today when you go home, I want you to actually apply and start accessing the support that we talk about today. So before I dive in too deeply on the IP side of things, I did want to highlight the available support at Invest Ottawa. So for all of our tech or tech-enabled companies, we have the IO Venture Path. And this is really a suite of stage-based programs supporting companies all the way from ideation to scale. And it really is designed to support you throughout that entire life cycle, the highs and the lows. And through accessing this support, the kinds of things that you'll get access to are access to a community, so the ability to connect with folks who are building similar things to you, an opportunity to knowledge share, to attend workshops and networking events, the ability to access one-on-one advisory support. We have a co-working space, specialized services such as all the IP support. The list really goes on and on. But I will say the greatest benefit, and events like this always remind us of it, is really getting access to that community and connecting with folks who are similar to you. So if the business that you're building or the business that you're thinking about building is tech or tech-enabled, and you haven't heard or checked out the Venture Path yet, please do so. Next up, we have support for our Main Street businesses. So this is for all other companies who are non-tech. This is operated by our Small Business Enterprise Center, and a few of the things that you can access through their support include access to one-on-one advisory services, so the ability to meet with an expert, chat through your specific issues, and get really tangible advice and feedback. They also have specialized support programs that can help guide you through the journey of starting from the ground up and building your business. And then the giant QR code is what I really want to highlight here. If you haven't yet visited the Invest Ottawa events page, I highly recommend it. I think you should bookmark this page, check back on it regularly. Not only does this highlight events going on in the community, like the one here today, but it also hosts literally hundreds of events hosted by our Small Business Enterprise Center. These focus on really tactical issues like accounting and legal problems, and also just wide, broad networking events and learning opportunities like this one. So if you've never seen that page before, scan the QR code, check it out, bookmark it, visit it all the time. If you have any questions about any of the support offered at Invest Ottawa, the Venture Path, or any of the Main Street programs, we do have a booth located on the left side of the room there, so our friends are happy to help answer any questions that you have. All right, now let's dive into IP. So whether you're already a member of one of our structured programs or you've never heard of any of this before and you're brand new, you just happen to stumble across Bayview Yards, there is something for you and we're really here to help you. So I do want to highlight that even if you're unsure of the stage of business that you're at, just reach out. we're very happy to guide you through that process and point you in the right direction. A few things to highlight in terms of available support is that on the IP team, we do cultivate relationships and gather an understanding of all available IP support. So we really want to act as your guide in navigating the ecosystem. As you'll see, I think on the next slide, there's a ton of available support programs right now, and trying to figure out all the details on your own can be really confusing. So just don't bother. Just let us help you. A few other things to highlight is we do have an IP resource guide. So all of the information that we've gathered and jammed into our own heads, we've actually put down on paper. And so you can download this, read through it at your leisure. This highlights available IP education, available IP support programs, and additional support that would be offered through joining one of our programs. I believe I mentioned this, but we do have IP advisors, including Maura Campbell back there, who's going to moderate our next panel. We have a team of 3 IP advisors who are available to meet with you one-on-one to chat through your IP challenges, answer initial questions, help you develop a better understanding, and make things really personalized and make sense to you. Really, the moral of the story, and my whole ramble for the next 10 minutes or so, is if any of this sounds remotely interesting, reach out, apply, ask for what you deserve. Okay, so let's dive into the available IP support. Some of these names may sound familiar, they may be brand new, but I will briefly touch on 4 available funding programs listed here. So we have Elevate IP, IP Assist, IP Ontario, or IPON, and the Innovation Asset Collective, or IAC. Okay, Elevate IP. So this slide quickly highlights the eligibility criteria. And as you can see, it is quite broad. So in order to be eligible for this program, you need to be a Canadian-controlled private corporation with less than 500 employees. You need to own the intellectual property. So the business itself needs to own the intellectual property or have exclusive rights, or you intend to own the intellectual property. And I add this point because there's often research spinouts or folks who are building things inside academic institutions, for example, and navigating that IP, getting it spun out into the business can be tricky. So we want to help you through that process as well. To work with Invest Ottawa in this delivery, you do need to be located in Eastern Ontario, but this is a national program. So it's being rolled out across the country. It's just different delivery partners delivering in different areas. So if you're not located in Eastern Ontario, you can look it up online and see who's delivering it in your region, or you can chat with our friends at the booth. They have a list. They can tell you who to reach out to. Okay, high-level Elevate IP support. So there's really 2 sort of segments of this program. So on one side, we have access to education. So as I mentioned, this really looks at hosting events like today, where you can learn more about what is IP, how does this apply to me, what should I be thinking about? It also includes access to our advisors and resources like that IP resource guide that I mentioned. Once you're a little bit further along and you actually have some IP developed that you need support with protecting, or you need support with understanding how to protect, that's when you can start to consider applying for funding. And so funding under the Elevate IP program is sometimes referred to Tier 2 or Tier 3 support, but really that all just means funding. So the kinds of things that can be eligible for funding is really anything that you're looking to do with an IP service provider. So I've put some examples on the slide, but if you're working with an IP service provider and the work specifically relates to your IP, it's worth asking us or your local delivery partner if that would be an eligible service. So a few things to highlight. Getting an IP strategy developed can be a really important first step. Swati talked about that. Getting trademark clearance searches or filings, patent filings or patent searches to understand if you can file a trademark or patent. And also licensing agreements, a really key part. I will also call out that in our region, there is potentially additional funds available for majority-owned women majority-owned and Indigenous majority-owned businesses. So if that applies to you, all the more reason to reach out. We're going the wrong way. There we go. Okay, so here's an overview of next steps and what this will look like. If anything I said today sounds interesting, please apply. That's the first step. It'll probably take you 10 minutes. It's an online form, and I have a QR code at the end. The next step is an intro call with our team so that we can get to know your needs and flag any and all support that would be relevant to you. So this is going to include other IP funding programs, but it'll also include things like the Venture Path support or support from our Small Business Enterprise Center that might be relevant to you that's outside the scope of IP. The next step will be to meet with one of our IP advisors so you can chat through your specific issues, questions, challenges, and if you're looking to proceed and be considered for funding, then they can also start that assessment process for you. So helping to prioritize your needs so that you're ready for the next step, which is connecting with an IP provider to get a quote for the work and understand what's involved. You'll send that quote to us, we'll consider it for assessment, and then once you're approved, that's really it. We sign the agreement, the work gets completed, you get the funding, and we proceed from there. So throughout the entire process, we're available to support you. We at Invest Ottawa work on a project-by-project basis. So once you've wrapped up your first project, you just go back to step 3 and start the process over for another project. So that's really how we're operating in this region. As promised, here's the other support programs. So we have IP Assist, which is funded by the National Research Council Industrial Research Assistance Program, also known as NRC IRAP. So this program is relevant to companies who are already IRAP clients. So if you have an assigned ITA, reach out to them to learn more or chat with us. We are a delivery partner of this program as well. The other 2 programs, we work with them closely as referral partners. So the next program is only relevant for folks who are headquartered in Ontario and who fall under one of those focus sectors listed on the slide. If you fall within those categories, definitely submit an application. This program operates very similarly to Elevate in terms of what's available to be funded. So it's a great opportunity to improve your education and get funding for strategy and implementation work. Finally, I'll highlight the Innovation Asset Collective. This one's a little bit different. It's a membership-based organization designed to support clean tech companies across Canada. So if you fall into that category and you've never heard of them before, check it out. I believe there's also someone from IAC here today. So there she is. So you can chat with her if you have any questions. Okay, as promised, here's the QR code. Scanning this gives you access to the IP resource guide, a link to apply to Elevate IP. Really, the moral of the story here is we want to help you, so let us. Just reach out to us, and we're more than happy to guide you through the process. As I mentioned earlier, all of the women here at the back of the space have leveraged Elevate IP support. So if you want to chat with them about their products and also chat with them about their experience, you're welcome to do so. Next up, we're going to have a panel of 3 founders who have also leveraged Elevate IP support, so I think we'll dig into that a little bit more. At this time, I think we're going to get the stage set up for our panel, but that is all. So maybe give a round of applause that you don't have to see me soon. that was really sad, guys. It wasn't intended to be sad. Is an IP advisor and also the president and CEO of the Ontario Biosciences Innovation Organization. Maura is going to moderate our panel for us, so I'll let her make her way up here. They took the mic away from me. They said, "You've had enough airtime. It's time for somebody else." I'm just kidding. Okay, I'll welcome up our panelists now. So we have Lisa from Vicon, Claudia from Cura Therapeutics, and Els from San Ecotech. Welcome to the stage.
Where is Claudia? We're one short. Okay. We'll just wait for a minute. I know I just saw her. Right. Good morning, everyone. To start, I'm just going to have you introduce yourselves and your company and just give a little bit of background on the company, and then we'll start on the questions. We have a lot of questions, so I was going to probably go in turn, a question per person, and then the last 3 questions would be for all 3 of you. So Claudia, if I can start with you.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be here. So I'm Claudia Benafuerte, CEO and co-founder of Cura Therapeutics. We are developing innovative immunotherapy multifunctional to treat metastatic cancer, pathogen infections, and fibrotic disease.
Good morning, everyone. I think it's working. Yes. Hi, my name is Els van Bekkevoort. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Ceremonies. Ceremonies is a water clean tech company. We help water users reduce risk and waste in their processes. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Lisa Patel-Killa, founder of Vicon Supplements, and we specialize using hair to determine mineral deficiencies and then make personalized custom supplements for each user.
Thank you all. So Claudia, I'm going to start with you. What was your first step in protecting your IP? How did you navigate the IP protection process when you started your company?
That's a great question. So in my, we said previously, every founder journey is different. In my case, we developed the IP even way before the company. So it was a discovery during my PhD program. So by then, talking about more than 10 years ago, that was thanks to my supervisor vision to protect the innovation. And then we went, once we defined, basically we investigate and we discover, oh, this is a new process, a new efficacy, nothing, there is nothing out there in the market. He suggests go and patent it. So that was a first step. I suggest for all the founders out there, if you find, have a discovery, a technology that solves a solution, the first thing you have to find is a lawyer. Try to protect your invention, because that's the only way, that's for us, the foundation of a biotech company. That's the only way that you have a product that have, can be commercially available, that have value in the market. So the first thing is define what is your invention and protect it. Is at the beginning going to be a provisional IP, but the first thing that you have to do is, even if you don't have a company incorporated, but apply for a patent application.
Did you, was it an institutional IP? Did you?
Yes, at the beginning was a McGill IP.
And is McGill a inventor owned or a?
Well, at the beginning they had the right, but then with the time we took a year to assign the IP to our company.
Okay, and the IP got assigned or?
Yes.
Okay,
it's
perfect. Great, thank you. Lisa, how do you decide which aspects of your business to protect with IP? I know your business is slightly different in that it's like it's direct sales. When is it important to seek IP protection in that startup phase? Like, right away, or can you wait a little bit?
Right away. Maura's a genius, by the way, just in case anybody's wondering. She's helped us a ton, and I highly suggest think about this before you need to think about it, right? Because once you get out into the market, and I mean, we do operate on a global scale. We do a lot of business in the Middle East, and we've already had to protect a trademark from a company in the United States. So getting that early understanding that there's programs for funding, I think Madison hit that home today, right?
don't bypass that. Use it. Use it for everything that you strategize to protect your brand, build your brand, and be able to defend your brand. Because when you get more popular, everybody's coming behind you to compete with you, right? So take advantage of what's right in front of you.
And Els, in your sector, how does the speed of innovation impact your IP strategy? Like how fast do you have to change and pivot?
I love that question, actually, because in my sector, regulations are extremely slow. So generally speaking, in the clean tech space, I guess, we are hopeful that there is a long-term view, but generally in politics, that's not the case. So the best way to approach this, and the way that we've learned, sometimes the hard way as well, is to try and solve a problem that is, felt, that is significant, and that somehow has not only a sustainability benefit, but also an economic benefit. So if you're able to combine that, and I heard that spoken about this morning, a return on investment, that there's something really tangible, then generally you get to be successful because everybody wants to save money. If saving money means you reduce your risk as well as your waste significantly, your CO2 footprint, your water footprint, and so on and so forth, then everybody wins. But generally, those things are really slow. So you have to be proactive and think about ways in which you can meet all of those criteria.
Great, thank you. Claudia, what role has IP played in taking your business to the next level? Has it helped giving you the competitive advantage, helped you secure some investment?
Yeah, as I said, the IP is everything for a biotech, especially for therapeutic company. It is the core, it's the foundation of the company. If you don't have IP or you have an idea, way to protect, to have a provisional IP, and then you go out there, because the investor gonna see value in your company when you have a protected technology. A technology without IP is, you don't have a product, you don't have a value in your company. Even if your idea could be the most brilliant one, but you need to protect your invention, because there are gonna be many people out there that will try to replicate what you have. So the IP is really the product, is the foundation of your company. And as you grow your company, you build a portfolio of IP portfolio, you enhance the application of your technology, and you gain more value for your company. So the IP is the first thing that you have to do. Even before incorporating your company, you can just patent your invention under your name, and then once you incorporate your company, then you assign the invention to your company.
Yeah, I find that it's one of the biggest differences, I think, between life sciences and healthcare, digital health, health tech, medical device, and pure tech companies is you can't get anywhere in life sciences without your IP, and patents rule the world, to be honest, in life sciences. There is some trademark and trade secret, but patents are really the cornerstone of your IP portfolio for most life science companies.
Yeah, I want to add more, a little bit of my experience. I work also as serve as a member of the selection committee of Berkeley Skydeck, and many companies come to compete only with the idea. And unfortunately, even could be the most interesting, the most applicable, the committee has to reject those companies until they really come back with a provisional IP minimum.
Great, thank you. Els, what are some of the key factors you considered when you developed your IP strategy, and how does it align with your business model? And what types of IP protection did you seek?
So I think it's important to, like I said before, to think about solutions that you can provide. So, and I know we'll maybe get to some of those other questions earlier, or later rather, that, we didn't start out the way you did. So we started with solving a problem and spending a lot of time doing research and development. And because there was a lot of regulatory oversight, we kind of missed, I think really kind of missed the opportunity for some of those early IP aspects. But ultimately, as time went on, and we learned from our mistakes, we did kind of say, okay, where is the most value that we can potentially add? And the patents that we filed subsequently have been both in terms of apparatus, so hardware, method patents, as well as system patents that basically solve some of those problems. And also, software is a hard one to manage, but we've built a number of special methods into that software, which are highly protectable, but not necessarily the software itself. And the strategy for us has been, where is the path to market? Where do we have the opportunity to sell? What does the competitive landscape look like? And so be able to navigate that and come up with some really tangible solutions that ultimately kind of sell themselves in that way. Once you start to get that out there and you can speak about it freely, then the opportunity is there. And then, the rest is kind of easier to manage and navigate.
It's interesting you said speak about it freely. Like at the very beginning, how did you kind of market your ideas when you wouldn't have necessarily had the funding to file IP at that point?
It was very difficult. So we've published some peer-reviewed scientific papers, but when you do that, you are disclosing. So you have to kind of navigate this very, very carefully so you can educate and speak around what you're doing, speak about the outcomes, but not how you get there. So you have to be really careful. And like I say, getting early advice, and I've heard this a couple of times, but getting that early advice on how to navigate this, but also create credibility for something that doesn't yet exist and that is new in the market, particularly if you're trying to move the needle in terms of how we manage a particular problem, or how how in our case, how water is treated and managed. It's certainly challenging, but it's possible to do it with good advice and understanding what you can and cannot say.
Thank you. Lisa, knowing we worked together a little bit on some of your challenges, what are the challenges and opportunities in addressing markets outside of Canada, and how did you kind of navigate those? I know we had a lot of late night experiences where we were trying to get trademarks filed in jurisdictions where we had no idea how to file a trademark.
It's interesting because some of them aren't in WIPO, right? A lot of the Middle Eastern countries do everything via agents manually, so they're very expensive as well, right? So this is where, the program has helped us tremendously. It can be upwards of almost 10,000 just for one trademark in some of the Middle Eastern countries. So navigating through that with, again, support, right? I can't say enough with regards to Maura's support. We also have a business strategist from support, which was from a government program as well. He's been pivotal in the last 18 months in expanding our business and being able to prep us for the next level, which is going to include a patent, I believe. We've been down that road a couple of times too, trying to navigate that with Maura's support. So getting into some of the markets outside of Canada can be challenging. And again, having that support and sounding board and that next level is what gets you where you need to go.
Yeah, and I think that's important to realize too, is like when we say WIPO, it's the World Intellectual Property Organization. So I think it's 134 countries subscribed to WIPO now. So when you do a patent corporation treaty filing, that allows you to be able to go into each of those countries. But there are countries that don't subscribe to that, and you have to basically navigate how to protect yourself there. A lot of the Arabic countries, a lot of the African countries, it's very different. So you do need really good IP counsel in order to stay on top of that. How did you find the agents that you were working with in the Middle East?
Luckily, I didn't have to deal with them directly. The law firm did all of that. So navigating through that, again, good lawyer. We have one that kicked off the day, right? So a good lawyer is critical. Make that investment, and because that's what's, again, going to be able to reach your end goal. But yeah, they navigated with them back and forth. They take a little longer as well The time frame is longer than, just a Canadian or US trademark, but they're definitely achievable if that's a market that you're looking at.
Thank you. So my next questions are going to be for all three of you, and we'll just go in turn. So Claudia, what advice would you give founders in the room today on some of the pitfalls that you would want to have avoided? What were some of the bigger mistakes that you made early on that if you had to do it over again, you would have not done them? And what advice would you give?
Yes, it's a really good question. So my first advice, once you have an idea and you plan to create your own company, find legal help right away. There are programs. We start with McGill's one that they give you hours of free legal assistance. Those are precious because it's super expensive. Maura mentioned. Find programs like iPhone, like LL.B, those programs that give you free, free no consulting. That save you a lot of money, make you progress in your IP strategy, and find the talent, the agency that really are aligned with your industry. Let's say your industry is biotech or clean tech, find that type of IP lawyers that have the expertise in that industry, because then that will help you a lot to have the right IP, to diversify your portfolio, to set up your IP strategy. So at the beginning, I suggest find the program, accelerator, incubator that have IP assistance. That's very important. And then from there, you learn many things that you don't know at that point. And sometimes scientists make a lot of mistakes. They go and they find a protein, a treatment, or a strategy that can increase efficacy. Or the first thing they do is go make a poster and go and present it somewhere. That's a big mistake. Trying to talk to your IP, your principal investigator. Sometimes they have many things in mind they don't know, but then find a legal help that really guide you in the process.
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult. We've even, the company I was with before Obio, we even had problems with thesis. If theses aren't embargoed by the academic institute, those can come back and haunt you if you haven't filed the IP before that thesis is searchable. It isn't even that it's published; it's that it's searchable, and the patent office can acquire it. So these are the kind of things that will create some real pitfalls.
That's a really good point. Let's say in my case, we filed the IP before the thesis defense, but despite of that, we did a closed-door thesis defense. So have that in mind, because sometimes your PI is, distracting many things, but you have to really be aware of any challenge, any situation that can haunt you after. So if you have a solution for something, request a closed-door thesis defense, request a patent application, talk to every university have a legal department that can help you with the whole process.
Great. Thank you. And else, same question, like what were some of your biggest mistakes and what would you advise to do differently?
Not doing everything you just said. So yes, being focused on the research and the development, trying to really solve a problem, doing something that never been done before, having extensive regulatory oversight. So all of those things really distracted us. And also one of the biggest challenges, I think, because we lost our first patent family, we basically, it didn't in the end file. And that's because the legal team wasn't the right legal team. And I have to thank Naomi as well, because I know that, they helped us out a lot. And also having an agent who understands your subject matter. So, we needed somebody who understood chemistry, who understood what we were doing. And we didn't have that person at the beginning. And so it was a poorly drafted patent. In the end, we lost a lot of that initial, I think, impetus that we could have had. So as you said, start early, get the right people. It takes a team. Been very thankful also with Elevate IP, the advisory services. It helps you to be disciplined and focused and look at, okay, what's the strategy? What makes the most sense? And having somebody ask you good questions, I think is very helpful as well, just to clarify that. But I think start early, get the right team around you, and then hopefully don't make the mistakes that we made.
Yeah, and a lot of times, like that subject matter expert on the law firm side is so important. I've had another company, same thing, that the amount of fixing that they've had to do on the application because they really needed a chemist on it. And it costs a lot of money to fix. And sometimes things are not fixable. You basically disclose something and you can't pull it back. Lisa, I'm going to ask you the same question. Like, what were some of the mistakes you made early on, and what would you do to avoid them?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I was able to turn back time, I would have started getting support earlier, right? I navigated a lot of this on my own with a small team for too long without the right support to be able to grow the way that we deserve to with the ideas that we had. The other thing that you have to be just a little bit careful about as a founder or CEO is sharing too much, right? You talked about that. And because we're excited, we have this new idea and this is amazing and I'm going to, solve whatever problem I'm trying to solve. But when you overshare, you can't take that back. Right? So that's probably one of the things. I've gone down the patent road a couple of times, and then I realized, I already shared that because I'm educating people, right? And so just be very careful. And, earlier on in our first session, NDAs, right? Protecting that IP, making sure that if you are bringing on advisors or contributors, researchers, that they are signing those contracts. Like I said, some money is very well spent, and that is, for me, number one.
Yeah, that's really a good point, because even early, if you have only a provisional IP, request an NDA. Still, your competitor can go and develop a better version that you are doing, and there's nothing you can do. You didn't have a legal document that protect your invention.
Yeah, and I mean, it's important also to look like all your contracts, your employment agreements, your consulting agreements, like no handshakes. And they have to have that language that they assign the IP to the company. They don't have that language. You may be engaging somebody that is going to walk away with a lot of the IP, and there's really nothing you can do about it. If that clause isn't there, they're well within their rights to develop the IP on their own. What about agreements and contracts? I'm going to go through the three of you. What kind of pitfalls have you had there with collaborations, licenses, the gamut of agreements?
Yeah, that's a really good question, especially when you are fundraising. And many VC don't want to sign NDA, and they want to go deeper in the science. And that's a challenge, because you really want to show, listen, this is something new. But at the same time, you are being vulnerable. You are showing everything, and you don't know if this investor really going to put money in your company. So it's a fine line between what you can disclose. You can always find a way to disclose your technology without giving away your secret sauce. And if you can manage, if they want to know more, then you said, well, we need to sign NDA. We need to be, because that's what pharma do. Bigger pharma always want to get as much information as possible, and they refuse in many cases to sign an NDA. And in reality, at that point, you are so early. They even are not interested to partner with you until you are more developed, but they want to get the information out of you. So you have to really play a good guy role, but at the same time, show that you have something that have value and you are on the right path.
Yeah, I mean, it can be challenging, but you really need to stage your disclosures in those situations, because VCs are looking, sometimes they're just kicking your tire to look at another
their portfolio
for another car. Yeah. And so you do have to be careful. A lot of times in the companies I've been in, we would have a very non-confidential approach until there was a signed term sheet. And then once there was a signed term sheet and there was a modicum of an obligation, then we would move forward with more disclosure. But again, it's so easy in the sciences. You want to tell them exactly like everything that you're doing, why it's important, and you really have to bite your tongue and kind of hold back.
You're so excited that you want to spill the bean, but that's a mistake.
Else, same thing, just contracts, agreements, pitfalls you've had there.
I think we have learned from the past, so we don't really get into any serious conversation with a potential partner without first an NDA. And having that legal team there as well, really as part of the negotiation. So I wouldn't really, venture to do this by myself. I think, again, it takes a team to do so. And then in the solutions that you develop, of course, have a license agreement in there that clearly stipulates, because we also have a very large content library within our software, that's years and years and years of know-how and expertise that's built into the platform. So you have to make sure that it's all protected, or that the license is very clear on what that looks like. So for us, we're now maybe a little bit extra careful, but I think it's important and it's worthwhile doing that.
Yeah, usually care comes after you've been bit. Lisa, same question, just some of the problems you've had with agreements that you wish you could have done differently.
Well, hopefully by the end of the session, everybody's going to care before they get bit. Right. That's the lesson. I'll kind of share, because there's lots of good points that have already been said that I would say as well. The other part is where you're dealing, right? So one of the things that we had to do this in late 2024 was actually find a global law firm, right? So if you're doing business, outside of Canada, in different countries, it's important to make sure that you're looking for the right firm that has the presence in some of the areas that can make those referrals, because every contract is different based on where it's going to exist, right? So that's really important. Don't leave that to chance. Contracts are, again, what's going to save you in the end and contribute to whatever exit strategy you have.
Thank you. So obviously we've been talking a lot about the support that's available. I tell companies all the time now, you have no excuse not to have a pristine IP portfolio and IP strategy, because there is just so much funding available. I don't think I ever had that advantage when I was with companies. My CEO and our investors would have loved it, because it's all non-dilutive funding. It doesn't hit your bottom line. And it's an area where a lot of companies struggle in the early days to find the funding to really adequately protect their IP. So, take advantage of everything: IP Assist, IAC, IPON, Elevate IP, find out how to apply and get in there. Some companies are getting almost $500,000 in non-dilutive funding to protect their IP and really finesse their IP strategy. So I wanted to ask each of you in turn, which of the programs have you accessed and what have you used that funding for? What type of IP activities? I'll start with Claudia.
That's a great question. We haven't got any support because we are outside the ecosystem and we are moving here. We are moving to this ecosystem, to Ontario, to really take advantage of that. Doesn't matter what stage of development you are. IP, as I said, is the foundation of your company. At earlier stage, later, as your company grows, you are basically enhancing, increasing the portfolio. And every stage, the legal support programs that give you that assistance are precious. Like that doesn't have a value. It's like, so one of the reasons that we are moving here is because basically be part of this ecosystem and get the support that we need, because we are getting closer to IND enabling study, and that we are basically enhancing our portfolio in different applications, and this program really made a difference. So I suggest to anyone that are already here, take advantage of those programs, because are valuable for early and also for later stage company.
Yeah, I should mention too, is like the province of Ontario now, I would say, is unique across the other provinces because we have IPON, which is a huge amount of funding, and we have Elevate IP. The way it's delivered in the province of Ontario, it's different than the other provinces. So there's a lot more companies can take advantage of it in Ontario. I won't say what the jurisdiction you're from, but Claudia's company is moving to Ontario to be able to access a lot of that funding. Else, I'll ask you the same question.
I think it's just been really helpful for us. I think in the last 4 or 5 years, we have filed 6 additional patent families. So we did more in the last number of years than we've done in the time before that. And I think without having that active support and be able to direct some of your operating budgets rather, because it's very expensive, obviously, besides trademarks, I also heard that, but it's critical. And so for us, IP Assist, Elevate IP, we also went through the IPON process, and actually I allowed some of our team members to go through that educational process, because I have learned over the years, but it's been extremely valuable for them as well. And so I think, having this now is a game changer, because if we want to support Made in Canada and we want to support our companies, then, that's the foundation to do all of that. So for us, we're going, now starting our 11th patent family. So, and we've done some really cool things that not only, will help our company, but also will actually be really great for our province and our country as well, as we differentiate from some of our competitors. I don't want to get into the details because I could talk for the next 2 hours about that. Anyways, yeah, thank you.
Lisa, same question. Just which programs have you accessed and how has it helped you?
Yeah, so we've accessed Elevate IP as well as IPON. Both have been amazing. The education that's offered as well that you mentioned is fantastic. I highly suggest that. That was an area that I was not familiar with. I've always owned brick and mortar businesses, and so that really helped with the understanding. That's critical. And and as for how it helped us, I mean, would we have the number of trademarks around the world we do today? Absolutely not, right? So again, the funding is here. They're here to help. Don't leave without applying. And I have no vested interest other than being a client.
Great. I do wonder, what were some of the other, before this funding was available, what were some of the supports that you had to help you in the early days, like either tech transfer office, a partner that knew a lot, like what were some of the areas that you were able to be supported in your IP journey?
Well, for us, as I said, the journey was different. We got that 1 year of legal support when we finished the McGillis-1 accelerator program. We were the first place in the Dobson Cup, so that gives you a year of support. And now we realize how much we save. Just to give you an idea, without support, I said that year of legal support, we spent over $300K in IP and legal assistance. So for us, it's once you have those experience, you realize of the value of this program. So for us, it's basically, we are now constantly looking for support, IP support, to be able to really advance our technology to the clinic. So it's pretty much that's the support that we get, 1 year of legal free support, and that's it. We didn't get more support for IP. We got support for KOL, for other part of the business, and now we are working with Capital Bioventure in more like CMC expertise. That's super important as well, because that's what brings you to what actually can de-risk your business to make a product that is more clinical friendly. And that is other type of support. It's like talent. That is also something that you need to find, the talent, the KOL expertise that at different stages of your business help you to advance your technology. But regarding to the IP support, was just that year of legal support pre-legal support.
Else, some of the early support you had before, like all that's available now?
I think it was BDC who was first making us aware of tax credits, so SHRED. I think that was extremely helpful, but it's a big job every year. IRAP has also been very helpful, but those were then specific projects, although in our clean tech space, certainly there was room for that. So those were all helpful, but not specifically dedicated to IP development as such. Some of our research partnerships as well with some universities that we worked with, there was certainly funding available, but again, that was for R&D projects. So this has made life a lot better for everybody. So whoever's here looking to start this journey, it's so much better today than it was way back when.
Yeah, Lisa, just some of the supports you were using in the early days.
Yeah, so I mean, SHRED as well, more research and development, of course, and really for IP, anything that we were doing in the beginning for trademarks and things like that was all business funded. We funded it ourselves. So like I said, the advancement to be able to have the support for funding, overseas and things like that has been just incredible.
Great, thanks. I'm going to, we've talked about how IP has really helped level up your business. I want to go in turn again. What advice would you give to the founders in the room that are just starting to think about their IP and the role it has in their business strategy? What would you tell them that you wish someone had told you when you were starting?
Yes, and the first thing is engage with your university IP department, the legal department, get help, because they can guide you in the process. Even things that you maybe think that are patentable, maybe they are not. They can guide you in that. Don't publish right away. Don't make a poster or wrong to a meeting. Like one of my students that I was supervising, the first thing it was like, I have a poster prepared. Where are you going? So make sure you get the help, the legal help at the beginning, because that can really help you to basically plan your whole IP strategy and help you to navigate to protect your invention before anything else. Don't worry about I don't have a company. That you can do it later. The first thing is you have to protect your invention, and then after you worry about incorporate the company and all those the whole process.
Else, same question. Advice, like
to add to what we've just heard, I think having that right team at the beginning is really important. So getting a subject matter expert if it's necessary. If you're in the tech space, that's particularly valuable. Discipline in an IP disclosure document that our agent provided a number of years ago really helped not just us but the whole R&D team really to focus on teasing out those elements that are protectable, because that in and of itself, like you're just going about your business and you're trying to build your business, but you're not really necessarily identifying where the protective pieces are. So having some discipline and some knowledge on how to do that, I think is also very valuable. And of course, there is a lot of help available now, which I think, everybody sign up today. Like it's a no-brainer. So,
and Lisa, just advice.
Yeah. So I would say two things. The first one is don't ever think you don't have an idea that's worth a patent, right? Have a referral. I was lucky enough, our business lawyer referred me to a patent lawyer, and I've had many conversations with her. And, after my very first conversation, I remember she said, don't know if this specific one we can do, but I have a feeling you'll be back. Right? And I was. So don't discount what you're thinking. Talk to somebody, get that support. And again, take advantage of an advisor early. So for us, a real game changer was strategy, right? Otherwise, it's like trying to hit a dartboard, but you're in the dark, throwing darts. You don't even know if you're facing the board, right? So having an IP landscape done so that you know the market, understand who else is out there that could potentially be a competitor, and then put a strategy together and stick to it, right? For me, I think that's two main points for sure.
Yes, I want to add something there too. Let's say you found something you think there is a market that have value that can solve a major problem. Always do a small competitive landscape to check what are the competitors out there. If your solution is already patented by someone else, you have to do a small research. And in addition of that, get your question, everything ready before you interact with the lawyer. The lawyer gonna give you an hour or half an hour, and they are counting maybe as part of the program, but once that hour is over, that's it. They are expensive people. So have everything ready. So when you are talking to a lawyer, you are getting information, not just like, hey, how's life? Just measure that hour very carefully and try to get as much information as possible that allow you to really interact with an agency for the patent, even write your own patent. That was our case. So there are many things that you have to do, but the first thing is interact with the legal department of your university to get as much information as possible.
Thank you. I do think too is like people don't realize like it's not that high a bar for patentability. Like even if you say for composition mix together a bunch of known elements, the mixture itself can be considered proprietary and patentable. So I think people get a little bent out of shape that they have to have this eureka moment, but sometimes you're just moving the bar a little bit, and that's still considered patentable, right? And so don't discount what you're some of the work that you're doing. I think we have a little bit of time. I was going to open it up to questions in the audience. Somebody over here. To anyone on the panel?
Just very curious. I had a few quotes from lawyers on a patent, and for my specific product, it seemed to be too expensive compared to how defensible it is and how easy it is to deconstruct, re-engineer sort of the same formulation that I have. What do you think? How protected are we really with a patent, and how long does it take to actually get any legal action, any compensation? How does that work?
Yeah, I think basically you're protected in that once you've filed IP on that, you're moving ahead of anybody else. So if people can work around you, but the goal of your patent is to be able to have, it's as broad coverage as you can get to prevent people from coming and working around. It's a long haul. It's a long haul to get an issued patent, and it's even a longer haul on the litigation side. So patents are really more, I would say, like tools of your trade. They keep competitors at bay, but they're not foolproof. I mean, people can definitely work around it. In life sciences, it's awfully difficult because you're a small company. You usually have just a handful of people that are involved in your patent process. When you're involved in a collaboration with a pharmaceutical company, they have a team of hundreds. So it's easy to get for them to basically figure out the holes in your patent and your patent strategy. That's why I think like the funding now is so important, because you can get a lot of funding to help you make sure that you don't have holes in your patent and your patent strategy and your IP strategy. Did anyone else want to comment?
Yeah, I was going to add, you can start with provisional patents because that gives you another 12 months to further develop. Because we found that to be a very useful strategy. That's a little bit lower in terms of cost to start. The other thing is that you can't ever stop developing. So I think it's quite right what you say. Patents gives you a leg up, and it's certainly showing to the rest of the world that you have something that's worth protecting. But you have to keep developing and looking. If you have that subject matter expertise, then they can really help you to broaden the scope and the capacity, and also help you to identify those things that are unique and are protectable. And I think that's really important as well. That would be my perspective.
Yes, and also one important thing is to find the agency that is very knowledgeable in that industry, because that can help you to write a patent that protect your technology, but also don't cover too much, because otherwise you're blocking yourself if you want to develop another patent, but also make you well protected. And then allow you to include in as a patent family other application that you can use or can be derived from that initial patent.
I mean,
Maybe
basically,
you
yeah,
can-
that people come up with, you know, a workaround and your IP is solid on the base composition, for lack of a better word, they still have to come to you to license those IP rights to practice whatever workaround they've done, right? And I think that's kind of the goal. When I was with a previous company, we had a big pharma deal. We had very solid IP that we licensed to the pharma around the composition that they wanted, the component or product or however you want to define it. But then we also did exhaustive IP all around that product to create this kind of picket fence so that, so that they could not, you know, sure, they could try to work around, but they were never going to get that close to our product. They didn't know about this other IP. It was never involved in part of the agreement. We spent probably more time thinking that IP out than we actually thought about the product, because we were just trying to create this moat, this picket fence, however you want to describe
How
it.
you call it, patent wall?
Patent moat, yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Good morning. My name's Faylene. I'm from the law firm of Osler. And one of the things our clients always talk about is how, like when they come to us, they're eager to get the patent, get a trademark, but they often are trying to speed through that IP strategy piece. And then when we're like partway through the process, they often come back to me and say like that patentability strategy, the results, like having a subject matter expert send you things that look the most relevant to what you're doing. They're often surprised of how it can help dictate R&D, what paths to go down because they look very fruitful versus ones that are very crowded and that you'll only get limited protections. So I was wondering if you guys have had the same experience that those search results, for example, or landscapes end up being far more valuable than you initially thought they might be.
Yeah, I can answer that. Believe me, metastatic cancer, more crowd than that. So yeah, it's really a fine line. You have to make your distinction really everything in the patent, the claim, and also at the same time block others that try to reproduce or replicate your invention to work around. And then at the same time, you have to leave your patent in the way that you can diversify your portfolio. You can add more application based on that original patent. So it's really, you need, as Maura said, you need expert, like a patent lawyer that have the knowledge as well, that are biochemistry or biologists that can really know the terminology and know the market. And that can help you to really navigate that process, because it becomes super competitive. Like immuno-oncology is highly competitive, and it's getting harder and harder to patent a technology. So that requires really to get a base of a foundation of your IP strategy with good talent, people that really know the space and manage all the legal terminology to protect your invention, prevent the other replicate, and at the same time allow you to expand that portfolio. It's really complicated. You guys are rock stars.
Also, I think you wanted to weigh in a bit.
Yeah, the landscape is incredibly valuable, not just for looking at prior art or other, potential patents that are close to yours, but really just looking what's out there to provide a solution to a problem. And that actually is even the more valuable part, I think, to understand, okay, is there really a solution to this problem? The challenge on the other side, of course, is that if you're on the leading edge of innovation, you could also be on the bleeding edge of innovation, because people aren't ready for, going digital or doing some of the things that you're trying to do. So you have to kind of when you're having those discussions and those conversations, you have to include all of that in your strategy and then come up with something that's practical, that's achievable, that you actually can implement. But yes, very, very valuable.
Yeah, and there's even times, after we did the landscape that I made different decisions than I thought I was going to, right? Based on that information. And so that's why I like landscape strategy, follow it, revisit it, make those next decisions because they change. And, as somebody new comes into the market and they're in the next landscape, maybe you need to pivot and add to the strategy you have, right? So super important information to have and to be able to utilize.
Yeah, I do find when there wasn't this funding available, people really skimped on landscapes. And because they didn't have the money to do them. But it really does help you kind of cull your product, what it's going to look like, and really figure out where's the white space in the IP landscape. Can we do one more question? Yeah. Okay. Any other?
Hi, I'm Kelly Murphy. So I actually work at the Canadian Intellectual Property Office, but I'm in the IP awareness and education team. And so we have a bunch of tools and resources. We're trying to offer as much free support as possible. Bear with me, I'm getting to my question here. But so this year we did a strategy to understand the needs of women. And some of the things that came out were obviously funding. That's a no-brainer, but also that women needed supports and that women were also facing the biases or the biases against them, and particularly in IP. And it's interesting that the data shows that it's actually even women who are working in STEM tend to turn to their male colleagues to actually file the IP for them, specifically in patents. And so I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge all of you and just, you were talking about your 11 patent families, wow, congratulations. And so I think that's really encouraging and supporting for the people in the room, and just reiterating, use those resources, elevate IP, like that program, and Invest Ottawa and everything that they're providing, go talk to Maura for sure. I think that's really important. My question is coming. Have you experienced any challenges when it comes to being an underrepresented group when you're working in your fields?
You want to start?
I mean, I think that I can't say necessarily directly, but there's always that inclination to a certain extent with regards to the area that we're in. And it's very segregated sometimes, right? And I think that the interesting part is now you see it even over the last 5 years. For us, it's been evolving, right? I will tell you that I just hired a VP of operations, but until then, my executive team was all women for no other reason than they were the candidates that fit the bill when I needed them. So that was really interesting too. And I think, the more that we embrace everything we're doing, the less this will be affecting us.
I think it's better, but I think it still exists, and particularly dealing with engineers. So I think most of the engineers that I encounter are men, and that's okay. But I do still get the sense, and I've had, situations even from a client who said, okay, but can I speak to the real boss, So it's okay, but that's me. Anyway, so it does still exist. I think we're doing a lot of good work to make sure that that the same opportunities exist for women, but I think we do have to be mindful that those biases will continue to be there until at some point, hopefully, everybody gets on board.
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, it's getting better, but it's still it's hard, especially when you meet the VC that are from Japan, China, that come with a whole group of men, and you are the only woman in the table on the table. They look at you like, I don't know, the face that I don't know if I can believe you. But you go out there and you meet as many investors as possible. Eventually one say, oh yeah, she's right. But it's a challenge. It's a huge challenge, especially when you are raising international. And we start with, we already got the investment 3 years ago. and was a group from Taiwan. And the due diligence was like intense. They asked me like 100 questions. It's like, maybe if I were a guy, they would ask 15 questions. But it's harder for women.
You have to be better, and we are.
It's harder. Yeah, we need more women that really go out there and say, hey, I have an invention.
And take a leadership role, right? So like we do a podcast and, I don't know what the audience is, but, we're on to our 20th episode. We get some interesting guests. Generally, actually, they're all men. So any women who want to be on a Water Talks podcast, please come and see me. Anyway, but, I think that's part of it as well, right? So lead the way, educate and make time for other women supporting one another as well.
I want to say a small experience that we went to, as part of the Skyday program, we went to China, and we were 5 women CEO, and we met with government people. Everybody was a guy, everybody. And one military guy said, women's CEO, only in California, I mean, North America. I was like, so there is a lot of bias still international. More in Canada, not that much because we are more women power, but outside Canada,
There's hope.
It's hard.
And I'll share just because one of my execs is a woman engineer, so it's changing.
But I still do think this is outside of IP, like VC funding of women-led companies is abysmal, and it hasn't really changed. And I think it's, I'm in the healthcare life science space. It's even worse for that space because the risk of investment is so much higher. It's just really difficult. And I think we really need to move the needle there somehow. There are great things that are trying to move the needle. BDC Thrive Lab, SheBoot, Obio has a program, Women in Health, and a WeSeed program, but we need more, definitely more.
Especially the only 2% of the funding goes to women led company is really low. We are working hard.
I'm going to turn it back over to Madison.
Yeah, let's give them a round of applause. And I think that's actually a really fitting note to end on, that we do need more women in technology. We need more women in business, more women filing IP. So listen to Elle's podcast. Check out Cura Therapeutics, San Ecotech, Vicon Supplements. Vicon and Cura have booths at the back of the space. Please, first, let's thank all the panelists and Maura for a wonderful discussion to wrap up today's event. Okay, so that really concludes our morning. I want to thank everyone so much for joining us today, having important and insightful conversations around IP and women in business. I hope that you took something away from today's event. I hope you're working on your application to Elevate IP, or you're at least checking out the booth over on the left and asking any questions you can. Please stick around. The space is open for the next hour or so. As I mentioned, all of the trade show pop-up booths at the back are recipients of the Elevate IP program, but we also have a ton of other booths displayed on in the lobby. Some are sampling products, some are selling products, so interact with those. Please answer our event survey. We do rely on your feedback to make these better. And there is still lots of food to be eaten and coffee to be drank. So hang out for a while, take food with you, and thanks so much for coming.